Rain still drummed against the outer dome like a war that refused to end. Inside the dim lab, the air was thick with the scent of damp soil and pulsing bioluminescent vines that curled along the greenhouse's curved walls. Callan Ward knelt beside the table, his gloves slick with antiseptic gel and blood that shimmered faintly under the lights. Not human blood. Her blood. The alien woman, if she could be called that, lay unconscious but breathing, her ribcage rising with slow defiance. Her skin was obsidian black, veined with threads of light that pulsed in irregular rhythms. One of her arms ended abruptly in a jagged stump where bone met biosteel. The weapon fused into her anatomy was gone, violently ripped out. Her robes were shredded and soaked, her bare feet torn by the jungle floor. She looked like a statue carved by lightning and war. Callan wrapped a woven vine around her wrists, not tight, just enough. The fibers shimmered softly, a design of his own, a hybrid plant genetically tuned to mimic neural suppression. Normally used to calm aggressive flora, now it served as a restraint for something far more dangerous. She twitched at the contact but didn't wake. He should have left her outside. He had every reason to. A decade ago, a Valari strike team raised the southern colonies, his wife, his daughter gone, burned under the justification of cleansing impure territory. And yet, here she was, broken and bleeding on his table, and his first instinct had been to save her. When she finally stirred, her eyes snapped open like blades unsheathed. Vertical pupils gleamed beneath lashes crusted with dried blood. Her muscles coiled, testing the restraint. "Where am I?" She rasped, voice low and electric. "You're safe," Callan said. "You collapsed at my door." "Liar." She strained against the vines. "You bound me. For your protection." "And mine," she snarled. "Do you even know what I am?" "Yes," he said quietly. "Valari. Engineered. Combat grown." Her expression twisted with something between hatred and shame. "They sent me to die." "You're a prototype," he said, observing the data on the scanner beside her. "You're neural architecture, it's different. You're not just reacting. You single quotes processing, choosing." "Shut up," she hissed. "Don't pretend to understand me." "I'm not pretending." He sat back on his heels. "I'm trying to figure out why a Valari soldier didn't finish the mission. Why she didn't kill the child standing in front of her." She blinked. Her glow faltered. "You know about that. It's in your vitals. You were penalized mid-combat. Something about hesitation resulting in compromise. You didn't fail, Rivena. You evolved. I am not that name." She jerked against the vine. "That name was given to me by those who threw me away. What should I call you?" She looked at him, for the first time not like a predator, just a creature barely holding herself together. "Why didn't you kill me?" she asked quietly, like it hurt to form the words. Callan's breath caught. He didn't look away. "Because you looked like you'd already died 1,000 times before you got here." The second night brought no rest. Callan couldn't sleep, not with the image of her burned into his mind. The way she flinched at the sound of rain. The way her body tensed like she expected to be struck every time he approached. He'd offered food. She refused. He'd loosened the restraints. She sat in silence, unmoving, unblinking. Only her eyes shifted, calculating the exits. He left the dome doors unlocked that night. He didn't know why. By morning, she was gone. Panic stabbed through him. He rushed through the wet jungle, calling out, slipping in the muck. He didn't get far before he found her again kneeling barefoot in the grove where the luminescent moss grew thickest. She was crouched before one of his most unstable vines, the singing thorn, which lashed out at sound and movement. She was perfectly still, whispering to it. When she stood and turned, her expression wasn't rage. It was awe. "This one remembers," she said softly. Callan froze. What do you mean? It recoils from my voice, but not yours. It responds to memory, doesn't it? Pain. He nodded, too surprised to hide it. How did you know that? She touched her temple. I was engineered to sense emotional resonance. It's how we read battlefields. Anticipate fear before the enemy even moves. She looked at the vine again. This one weeps. For the first time, Callan saw her not as an invader, but as someone who understood the garden in ways even he hadn't, not just genetically, spiritually. Later that day, he offered her a bowl of hot broth again. She accepted without a word. She didn't say much as she ate, but when she finished, she looked up at him with a quiet intensity. You left the doors open. Yes, he said. Why? I don't believe in cages. He replied, not even for living weapons. She studied him a long time. You're not afraid of me. Why? I didn't say that. He leaned back in his chair. But I think, if you were going to kill me, you'd have done it the moment you woke up. She didn't deny it. Instead, she stood, stepped slowly to the edge of the room where a wall of moss glowed faintly green. Her fingers hovered over it, reverent. Then she turned to him. They called me a defect, she said. Said I hesitated too long. They didn't care why. I was supposed to kill the child. I didn't. I couldn't. There was something in his eyes. He was afraid, but not of me, of what I might become. Callan felt something shift in his chest. I know that fear, he said. She tilted her head. Do you? My daughter, he said quietly, was 7. She hid in the cellar while the Velari purged the outpost. She died under rubble from a plasma strike. I couldn't reach her in time. Rilena's expression didn't change, but the glow beneath her skin flickered. Then why help me? He met her eyes. Because I refused to become what took her. The silence between them was heavier than the storm outside. You humans, she muttered, voice brittle. You speak of mercy as if it's strength. He stood and walked to her. It is. She stared at him, searching for cracks in his words. Then, without warning, her voice dropped. They'll come for me, the ones who made me. I'm not just a defect. I'm dangerous to them. I'm proof that their control can break. Then we hide you. She looked away. You don't understand. I don't want to hide. I want to choose who I become. For once, Callan took a breath. Then stay. Become whoever you want. She turned back to the wall of moss, and something shifted in the room, barely perceptible, but real. The singing thorn began to bloom. Callan awoke to silence. Not the gentle hush of dawn or the rhythmic patter of rain against the dome, but a silence that felt carved out of the world. Hollow. Watching. He sat up, pulse already rising. The cot beside the moss-lined wall was empty. Rivena was gone again. The airlock hadn't opened. The greenhouse's defense perimeter remained intact, which meant she hadn't left. But something in the way the plants shifted, how the glowing vines sagged instead of swayed, told him something had changed. He moved cautiously down the narrow walkway between nutrient trays and blooming stalks, toward the central chamber. The faint bioluminescence that usually danced along the dome's surface had dimmed. It wasn't the power. It was the atmosphere, tense. Waiting then he heard it, a low hum, not mechanical vocal, melodic in a way that sent shivers across his skin. It was coming from the eastern quadrant. He found her kneeling in a ring of Virivian bloom spires, the tallest and most unpredictable of the genetically spliced flora he'd cataloged. They only responded to frequencies well outside human hearing range. He'd never been able to get them to open, even after years of failed experiments. Now, they were swaying toward her. Rivena was humming in tones not made for human throats. The vines pulsed in synchrony with the veins glowing beneath her skin. She was singing to them or through them. He watched, too stunned to interrupt. As one of the bloom spires unfolded its crown of translucent petals for the first time since it had sprouted, when her song stopped, so did the plant's dot. She stood slowly, turning to face him. They listened. She said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes shimmered with a wild mixture of awe and fear. You opened them. They responded to pain, she whispered. I remembered something I wasn't supposed to. Callan stepped forward. What? Did you remember? She hesitated, then spoke quiet and raw. My first mission. The first time I killed. He said nothing, sensing the edge of a cliff she had never approached before. I didn't hesitate then, she continued. I was perfect, efficient. My handlers praised me. But afterward, I couldn't stop hearing the scream, not from the target. From someone behind them. A child, a brother maybe. It played in my mind like a fracture in programming. Her hands clenched into fists. Each mission after that, it got louder. Until I began dreaming. That wasn't supposed to happen. We're not made to dream. You're not a machine. Callan said softly. That's the problem, she snapped. I was supposed to be. She turned from him, breath uneven, trying to bury the tremble in her voice. They said I was dangerous. Not because I failed, but because I changed. Because I dreamed. Because you became more than what they built, Callan said. She whirled around, glowing fiercely. Don't you see? They'll come. They'll. Scan your networks, triangulate the thermal blooms from orbit. The minute they sense what I've become, what I've felt, they'll erase me. He nodded slowly. Then let them come. She stared at him, stunned. I won't let them take you, Callan said. You're not theirs anymore. Her jaw clenched. I'm not yours either. No, he agreed. But you're yours. Silence. Settled between them again, but this time it didn't feel hollow. It felt like something growing. She stepped closer. Close enough that the glow of her veins lit his collarbone. You risk everything, she murmured. Why? Callan didn't look away. Because maybe I needed to believe someone like you could exist. She studied him like a puzzle. Then, for the first time, her voice softened. You should fear me. I do, he said, but not for the reasons you think. She tilted her head. Then why? Because I don't know what I'd do if they took you from me. Railing-us. Breath caught in her throat. Her skin shifted, shimmering into unfamiliar hues. She touched her side, where her weapon once grew from her bone. I used to be sharp, she said. Precise. But now. Callan reached out, brushing her hand. Now you're human. No, she whispered. Now I'm something else. And? For a moment, standing beneath the glowing bloom spires, they both felt it. A new life form. Not plant. Not human. Not Valari. Something born in the silence between two wounds. At first, Callan thought it was pollen, just the greenhouse shedding its spring excess. But it didn't float like pollen. It drifted heavier, darker. The dome's filtration system should have caught it before it touched the soil. They didn't. Rivena stood barefoot at the western edge of the greenhouse, eyes locked on the sky through the transparent shell. The light filtering in had changed. It wasn't morning gold or evening violet, it was gray, metallic, unnatural, orbital descent burns. She murmured, atmospheric entry, low altitude approach. Callan stepped beside her, heart already pounding. Scans didn't show anything. They wouldn't, she said. Valari ships are grown, not built. Their hulls mimic ambient temperatures, electromagnetic shadows. You'll never see them until they want you to. You're sure? She turned her head slowly. They're here. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Rivena moved with terrifying speed, already gathering supplies. Not food, not medicine. Weaponized flora, dormant spores that reacted to sound, bark creepers. With pressure-sensitive barbs. She knew exactly what to take. exactly what to prepare. Callan didn't stop her. The air inside the dome grew colder, despite the sun still burning somewhere above the ash. The greenhouse dimmed as if the plants themselves knew war had returned. They set up defenses along the perimeter, tripwired vines, mirrored fern clusters to confuse thermal optics. Callan tried to focus, but his hands trembled. It had been years since he last felt this sensation powerlessness. Rivena noticed. "You've been hunted before," she said. He didn't respond at first. "They burned the shelters," he said finally. "Dropped firebombs on civilians who didn't evacuate fast enough. My daughter was in one of them. I found her medallion in the ash." Rivena's eyes narrowed. "And still you helped me." "Because you're not them." A sharp, sudden whine pierced the dome, not sirens. A frequency too high for most humans to hear clearly, but Callan heard it. So did the plants. They shrank back. Petals closed. Vines recoiled. Rivena's body went rigid. "They're signaling me," she said. "Trying to reactivate my root commands." "Can they?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her eyes were glazed, flickering. Her breath caught, like someone had pulled the air from her lungs. Then, like a flame pushed through soaked kindling, she exhaled. "No," she growled. "Not anymore." The light in her veins surged. Not the cool blue of programmed energy, but a burning amber. Alive and furious. "They want me back. Not because I failed, but because I became uncontrollable." Callan stepped closer. "So what do we do?" She looked at him with something that wasn't fear, wasn't exactly confidence either. It was surrender. "To choice. We fight." The sound came like a whisper at first, then grew louder, branches snapping outside the dome. The jungle, which had once been their sanctuary, now crawled with movement. Shapes darted between trees, too fast, too quiet. "Drones first," Rivena said. "Then the reclaimers." She placed a vine dagger in his hand. It throbbed with dormant life, waiting for activation. "You're not trained," she said, "but the dome knows you." "You think they'll take me alive?" She didn't smile. "They won't take either of us." The first drone breached the greenhouse perimeter a minute later, molecularly thin, a floating ghost of obsidian and mirrored light. It emitted a soundless pulse. The wall moss turned black instantly. Rivena moved like a living storm. She didn't wait. She attacked, not with weapons grown from her bones, but with fury sharpened by memory. She ripped the drone from the air and slammed it against the dome wall, vines slithering out to consume it whole. "More will come," Callan said. She nodded, skin glowing like fire beneath obsidian. "They will learn," she said, "that I am not theirs. What about me?" She turned, locking eyes with him. "You are the only thing I would break for." Then the ground trembled. The mothership was descending. The sky fractured, not in thunder or lightning, but in light. A pulse, bright and blinding, split the horizon as the Valari mothership pierced the upper atmosphere in total silence. It did not roar. It did not burn. It arrived as if reality itself had given it permission to overwrite the sky. Callan stood beneath the dome, jaw locked, staring upward. The structure vibrated around him, not from sound, but from presence. His greenhouse, his sanctuary, once filled with quiet hums of alien flora, now pulsed with tension. Every leaf, every vine, every petal seemed to hold its breath. Rivena didn't look up. She knelt beside the central root cluster, hands pressed into the soil like a priestess invoking something older than fear. Her veins glowed molten gold, now no longer flickering with confusion, but blazing with purpose. "They've sent a prime collector," she said without lifting her head. "They don't just want me erased. They want my neural thread extracted, dissected, repurposed." "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, finally rising, "they intend to unmake what I've become, reprogram my soul. A sudden flash lit the horizon. 6 drones, sleek and spider-like, descended in synchronized silence, spreading along the jungle perimeter. They weren't here to scan. They were here to seal. Containment field deployment, Rivena whispered, almost to herself. Classic pattern cut-off escape. Press inward, sweep the ruin. Callan felt a cold dread claw up his spine. They'll collapse the entire greenhouse? She nodded once. They'll preserve the dome's remains, catalog the data, and broadcast my death as a warning to any other unstable prototypes. He clenched his fists. And me? You were never meant to exist in their equation. You're collateral. The phrase hit him harder than it should have. He'd once studied equations, written them in glowing ink across lab boards, designed systems meant to sustain life in barren places. Now, he was just a variable to be erased. Rivena reached for a node in the greenhouse wall, a hidden root network tied to the core energy veins of the entire structure. The plants reacted instantly, bristling. Leaves curled. Pollen sacs contracted. Every living thing in the dome suddenly bent toward her. You're activating the defense matrix? He asked. No, she said. I'm giving it a choice. The dome responded. Not with weapons, but with growth. Rapid, explosive, defensive growth. Tendrils shot from the floor. Moss coated the walls. Spore-filled pods swelled like lungs. Waiting for a signal, the drones moved, and Rivena stepped into their path. No armor, no blade. Just her alive, defiant, and burning from within. Rivena of Designation 7 Ka Delta, came a voice from the lead drone, synthetic and malevolent. You are to be deactivated. Stand down for extraction. She raised her chin. I am no longer yours to command. You have malfunctioned. You chose hesitation. You chose love. Her lip curled. Yes, I chose. And with that, she screamed. It wasn't a cry of fear, it was a war song. The same frequency she had used to awaken the plants now tore through the dome like a storm. The flora reacted violently. Pods burst, vines snapped forward, wrapping around the drones, dragging them into the soil as the greenhouse became a living beast. Roots tore up floor tiles. Bioluminescent fungi blinked like eyes. The structure no longer resembled a dome, it was a shield, a fortress of evolution and rebellion. Callan ran to her, dodging a flailing drone limb. You'll bring the whole place down. They need to see, she shouted over the chaos, that what they cast aside has grown teeth. One drone broke free, lunging toward Callan. A sharp limb sliced across his side, tearing fabric and flesh. He stumbled. Rivena turned instantly. Her glow intensified amber, bleeding into white-hot fury. With a single leap, she tackled the drone mid-air, shoving her glowing hand into its neural core. The drone spasmed, then shattered in a burst of white light. She landed, panting, and rushed to Callan, catching him before he fell. You're hurt. I'm fine, he muttered through gritted teeth. Just bleeding. Not dying. She pressed her forehead to his, not caring about the blood or the dirt. You are mine, she whispered, and I will not let them take you. Suddenly, the ground split with a thunderous crack. The mothership's shadow fell over the dome. It had arrived. A narrow beam of light pierced the top of the dome, scanning, focusing, preparing. They'll destroy us both, Callan said. Rivena looked into his eyes, then let them try. And before he could speak, she stood, turned to the light, and raised her hands. The entire greenhouse shimmered. Not from tech. From will. The plants responded, not just to her voice, but to her resolve. They wrapped around her, armored her, became her. Her body blurred with biotic growth, her skin a living canvas of roots, petals, and golden fire. She had become the weapon they feared, but this time it was hers, and as the light of the mothership narrowed like a blade toward the dome, she stepped forward. The beam struck the dome like the wrath of a god, but the greenhouse did not break. It bent. Light warped around the structure, refracted by millions of microscopic spores suspended in the air. Spores Rivena had awakened. The entire biosphere had become a reactive shield, its energy not defiant but adaptive. The mothership had calculated brute force. What it had not accounted for was resilience. Callan shielded his eyes as the dome flared white, then golden, then deep violet, each pulse more organic than the last. He could feel it in his bones, like a second heartbeat thrumming through the earth. And in the center of it all stood Rivena. No longer cloaked in shadow, no longer half machine or half fugitive, she was whole. Her body was no longer a discarded design of Vellery engineering. It was a fusion. Skin merged with root, eyes alight with primal power, hair threaded with flowering strands that shimmered with movement. She was not wearing armor. She was the armor. She was not wielding weapons. She had become one. She raised a hand, and the dome reacted. Floral plating unfurled, redirecting the next phase of the beam into the jungle canopy. Trees ignited in silent flashes. But the dome remained unbreached. Above, the mothership paused. Then it spoke. You have mutated. The design is corrupt. Rivena stepped forward, voice clear and layered with the symphony of 100 awakened organisms. No, she said. The design has evolved. You are a threat to order. I am a choice. That makes me a threat only to control. The mothership's tone dropped, more urgent now, more mechanical. If you do not stand down, the human will be deleted. A beam targeted Callan, sharp, clinical, without rage. Just logic. Rivena moved faster than thought. She launched herself across the chamber in a blur of living roots and flame. A flower bloomed midair and expelled a shockwave, knocking the beam off its axis. The pulse scorched the dome wall just inches from Callan's face. Rivena landed in front of him, crouched low, eyes burning. They'll kill you to break. Emmy, she hissed. I know, Callan said, breath ragged. But I'm not running. He stepped beside her. He wasn't armored. He wasn't glowing, but he stood. You changed me, he whispered. Rivena glanced at him. You did the same. Callan reached for her hand, her real one, not grown from a weapon, but pulsing with life. Their fingers interlocked. The dome responded. Not just plants this time, but data. Every scanner, every root relay, every neural lattice flickered to life. Callan's old research had been quietly learning, adapting, growing, waiting for someone to bridge the gap between emotion and instinct, between biology and code. Together, hand in hand, they stepped to the center platform. Callan's voice activated the core. Command override. Initiate Echo Bloom protocol. The mothership paused again. Unrecognized sequence. Initiating lockdown. Too late. The dome had already linked, not to the mothership. To Rivena, and through her, to the Vellery network. A flood of raw memory surged back up the connection. Not orders, not data, emotion. Battlefield seen through a young soldier's eyes. Screams remembered in the dark. The moment she refused to kill. The moment she ran. The moment she collapsed into the arms of a man who should have left her to die. The Vellery system choked on it. The mothership flickered. Its beam sputtered. A new voice emerged. A distorted echo. Fragile. Feminine. Rail. Nah, she froze. Callan looked up at her. Who was that? She didn't answer at first. Her eyes welled with something unspeakable. Matron 3, she finally whispered. She raised us. She called me her blade, her daughter. Is she? No, Rivena said. She's a fragment. Left behind. Buried. The voice continued, weak and fragmented. You changed. The code ... they fear you. You're free ... And then silence. The mothership, faced with something it could not predict, made the only decision it had left. It began self-erasure. One by one, its systems powered down. Not from defeat, but from failure to assimilate the unquantifiable. The dome dimmed. The sky cleared, and the great ship fell silent above them, a ghost suspended in a cloudless sky. Callan collapsed to one knee, overwhelmed. Rivena dropped beside him, steadying him with one arm. You did it, he said, voice raw. No, she whispered, forehead to his. We did. Then what now? Rivena looked around the ravaged greenhouse. It still pulsed with life. Broken, but breathing. Now, she said, we plant something new. Twin suns rose over the fractured jungle. Their light spilled across the remains of the greenhouse, painting everything in gold and ash. The dome still stood, though it bore the wounds of the war they had survived. Cracks shimmered along its curved walls, filled not with synthetic sealants but living moss, pulsing with quiet resilience. Petals bloomed from shattered consoles. Roots coiled gently through once sterile lab stations. It was no longer a greenhouse. It was a living cathedral. Callan walked the perimeter slowly, his side still sore from the drone wound, his muscles stiff, but his spirit lighter. Beside him, Rivena moved in silence. The glow beneath her skin had softened, no longer a battlefield blaze but a quiet warmth. Her form remained partially hybridized, roots woven through her shoulders, her right hand still sheathed in living bark, but she no longer hid from it. This wasn't a curse. It was her evolution. It was their becoming. News had traveled. Somehow, despite the dome's isolation, the Velari network had splintered in the wake of Rivena's defiance. Other units, prototypes, failed experiments, and discarded warburn had begun to vanish from known colonies. Rumors whispered across star systems of Velari, who had chosen to walk away. Some were headed toward EOS 9. They had begun to arrive one by one. The first came 3 days after the mothership's silence. A young female with a fractured neural crest and frightened eyes. Then another, missing her blade arm but still proud. Then 2 more, bruised and limping, carrying seeds instead of weapons. Each of them had fled something. Each of them carried the potential to become something new. Rivena greeted each arrival with quiet understanding and offered sanctuary. Not commands. Not control. Just space, soil, sunlight, a future. Callan converted the western quadrant into living quarters, lined with fast-growing thermal moss to keep the nights warm. He grafted a language tree splice to translate emotions into scent and color, to help the newcomers speak before they were ready. Rivena rewired her pain into nurturing. She guided them like a guardian, not a general. And through it all, something delicate began to grow between her and Callan, not the wild bloom of battle-forged lust, but the deeper root of shared truth. One night, weeks later, as the stars glimmered over the now expanded biodome, Rivena stood by the edge of a new seedbed, half earth soil, half Velari dust. The air shimmered with spores, laughter from the campfires behind them, and the scent of blooming dusk orchids. Callan joined her, slipping his hand into hers. She looked at him. No longer uncertain. No longer afraid. Do you still wonder? She asked softly. What to do with love? Callan smiled. No, not anymore. She tilted her head, studying his face in the starlight. When I was first made, they told us love was a flaw, that it would break us. He raised her hand to his lips. Then I guess I'm grateful you were flawed. Her eyes shimmered, not with sorrow or rage, but something new. Something human. She leaned in, resting her forehead against his. Human, she whispered, breath warm, voice trembling with wonder. "What have you done to me?" He answered, not with words, but with the truth she already knew. His arms wrapped around her. His heartbeat, once shattered by loss, now beat steady beside hers. In the soil beneath their feet, a hybrid sprout emerged, its stem glowing with golden veins, its leaves shifting between two worlds. She closed her eyes. "I'm yours," she breathed. Heart, body, and soul. Above them, the stars did not mourn the war. They welcomed what came after, a new beginning.